Bonjour, salut. Today we're going to continue our study of regular ER verbs just by going over some of the same things that we looked at yesterday. But I'm hoping that maybe by talking about them in a different way, that might help you a little bit. So you can see on here, this is just kind of a review of how you conjugate those ER verbs. The vast majority of ER verbs in French end in the letters ER. And to form that present tense, just a reminder, you have those three steps. Step one, you drop the ER from the infinitive. Step two, you find the ending that corresponds to the subject. And then three, add that ending to that stem of the verb. So this chart demonstrates how you're going to conjugate a regular ER verb. The verb parler means to speak. So for je, you would drop the ER. Then you would say, okay, for je, the ending is E. So I'm going to add the E back in. So I'd have je parle. So you'd have E for je, ES for tu, E for il or elle, ONS for nous, EZ for vous, and ENT for il or elle pluriel. So when you add those on, the way that you're going to say those verbs is going to be je parle, tu parles, il parle, elle parle, nous parlons, vous parlez, il parle, elle parle. So just to note, pay attention to the fact, I'm going to see if I can use my little pointer here. Pay attention to the fact that these four subjects all sound the same. Je parle, tu parles, il parle, il parle. So all of those, even though they end in different letters, E, ES, and ENT, they all sound the same when you're speaking. That's one of the differences between French and Spanish, is that you have to actually use the subject because the verbs sound different. Let's see if I can erase all of these markings that I just did. So just pay attention to that. There is a little chant that I used to use when I was in the classroom, and I would make my students repeat it obnoxiously, and I won't make you repeat it obnoxiously, but I'm going to kind of teach it to you. And that is little cheerleader chant. I apologize for those of you who are cheerleaders. But it's just going through and saying the endings, and it's E, E-S-E, O-N-S-E-Z, E-N-T. E, E-S-E, O-N-S-E-Z, E-N-T. If you say it often enough, people make fun of me, but I'm telling you the power of a song or a chant is important. So if you can remember the subjects, je, tu, il, elle, nous, vous, il, elle, and then you can remember the endings, E, E-S-E, O-N-S-E-Z, E-N-T, E, E-S-E, O-N-S-E-Z, E-N-T. Then that might help you. Also note that here we have an E as the ending for je, and we have an E for the ending of il or elle. So just kind of pay attention to the fact that that is that those two verbs have the same subject endings. So you've really got to pay attention to who is speaking when you're going through and you're reading things. So note also that je is going to become J apostrophe when it appears before a verb that begins with a vowel sound. Not sure how much we've talked about this before, so just as a reminder, the vowels in French are the same as they are in English, A, E, I, O, U, and Y, but also the H is a vowel sound in French, and that's because we don't pronounce the H most often when we're speaking in French. So you would say, j'habite à Bruxelles, I live in Brussels, so it becomes J apostrophe, j'habite, or j'étudie la psychologie, J apostrophe. With the verbs adorer, aimer, and détester, and this is new, we didn't talk about this yesterday. With the verbs adorer, aimer, and détester, you're going to use the definite article before a noun. That's the le, la, les. So you're going to use the definite article always when you're talking about what someone loves, likes, prefers, or hates. These are what we call verbs of emotion. So if you're expressing an emotion about something, you're always going to use the definite article. J'aime l'art, j'aime mieux l'art, je déteste l'art, depending on your preference about art. Um, J'aime les devoirs, j'aime mieux les devoirs, je déteste les devoirs. You're always going to use the definite article when you're talking about those verbs of emotion. If you're talking about things that you like to do, or that you love to do, or that you hate to do, then the second verb, the thing that you're saying that you love, like, or hate to do, that second verb is going to be in the infinitive form. You're not going to conjugate it. You would only conjugate the first verb. So, for example, here, ils adorent travailler ici. You have ils adorent is conjugated with that ENT, but the travailler, note, it still has that ER on the end. So it's they love to work here, just like we say in English. Ils détestent étudier ensemble. They hate to study together, just like we say in English. So that's all the same. Should be very familiar, but just remember you only conjugate one verb per subject. So if you already have one conjugated verb, in this case, ils adorent travailler. Ils détestent étudier. You already have one conjugated verb. So the second verb is just going to be a subject, or is just going to be an infinitive. I'm sorry. You would only have a second conjugated verb if for some reason you had a second subject. So just kind of keep that in mind. The present tense in French can be translated in several different ways in English. And the way that we say it in English can often be very confusing for French speakers. So, for example, the sentence ils étudient la physique could be they study physics. It could also be they are studying physics. Like right now, they are in physics class and they are studying physics. Or it could be they do study physics. Like someone asked, don't they study physics? And it's like, yeah, they do study physics. Same thing about nous travaillons ici. We work here. Nous travaillons ici demain. We work here tomorrow. We are working here tomorrow. It could even possibly be we will work here tomorrow. That's not very likely, and we'll talk about, and coming up in future units, we'll talk about better ways to say that. But theoretically, it is one way of saying it. You're not going to be asked to do that a lot, but you should know that if you're speaking French, that can be sometimes confusing because the way that we say things in English is not always the way that they say things in French. And this is just for your knowledge. I'm not going to test you on this. I'm not even going to quiz you on this, but you may see it. And I would like for you to recognize why it's different. Verbs that end in GER, like manger, partager, or voyager, or verbs that end in CER, like commencer, have a weird spelling change in the new form, in that for GER verbs, they get an E after it. So note here, we have manger becomes nous mangeons with that extra E there at the end. And commencer becomes nous commençons, and that C gets an accent on the cedilla before you move on. It has to do with phonics. It has to do with the fact that G before an O makes a G sound instead of a J sound. And that C before an O makes a K, like a hard C, almost like a K, instead of a soft C. And both of those verbs require the soft G or the soft C. And so for nous voyageons, you put that E so that you get the soft G. For nous commençons, you put the cedilla so that you get the soft C. So it's all for pronunciation purposes. And then just kind of a last little note, unlike the English to look for, the French chercher doesn't require a preposition before the noun that follows it. Oops, let's erase my little notes right here. Chercher already means to look for, so you don't need a preposition before it. It already means the preposition is included in the infinitive. On the other hand, and I'm going to see if I can write this with my pen, the verb assister always requires a preposition after it. Assister means to attend. In English, we don't have to have a preposition. But in French, you need that preposition a. So if you're talking about what school you attend, you would have to use the preposition à. So you would say, j'assiste à South Forsyth High School, or j'assiste à Vickery Creek Middle School. So you always have to have that preposition, even though in English you just say to attend. So it's kind of the opposite there. Okay, let me go through and delete all of this really quickly. Since I don't want it to show up on the next slide. So this is just a little bit of practice for you. I'm going to ask you to do this on the next activity. You're going to go through and you're going to complete the sentences with the correct present tense of the verb that's in parentheses. So here's an example. Je parle français en classe. Your verb is parler. So let's remember the steps that we do. The first thing is that we're going to take off the ER. Step 2 is we're going to identify the subject and find the ending that goes along with it. The ending that goes along with je is e. And so then you're going to add that to the end. So you're going to end up finally with je parle. Okay, so let's look at step 2, number 2 really quickly. Nous blank habiter près de l'université. Step 1, we're going to take off the ER. Step 2 would be that we're going to identify the ending that goes along with new. So what's the ending that goes along with new? I hope you just shout it out. O-N-S. And then step 3 would be to add that ending onto here. So you're going to end up with habitant. H-A-B-I-T-O-N. S. I hope you're appreciating how difficult it is to write with a mouse. So you're going to do that on the next activity so that you can go through and practice that a little bit. I hope that helps kind of clear up some of the confusion from the notes from yesterday. I looked at your exit tickets for those of you who did them. Today we're going to spend the rest of the day practicing this conjugation. Let me know, as always, if you have any questions or concerns so that I can help to answer them. Au revoir, bonne journée.